Hello, welcome back to JavaScript tutorial. This is Sharful. In this lecture, we're going to learn class and object in JavaScript. So we'll see what is class, how to create class in JavaScript, some class properties like variable and methods, and also we'll see what is object, how to create object in a class, and the relationship between class and object. So let's go see the class and object. So what is class? A class can be defined as a template or blueprint that describe the behavior or states of its object and type support. So its class, you can say it's a template, it's a blueprint where the number of object can be part together, can be placed in a class, and it will give you the describe the behavior of its objects. So class is a template or blueprint. It's simply, you can see or you can say a class is a logical entity which contains the variables and methods or properties. So this is the most simple definition. A class is a logical entity, so where it contains some variables, some methods, and class, since the class is a logical entity, it doesn't store in a memory. It's just a logical, hypothetical, logical entity. The class also contains another method. It's called constructor. So constructor is a special method. We'll see later on when we'll do the code or see some example. But for it is a special type of method. So those are the different, the example. The definition of class, and also some properties that's involved with the class. So now, what is object? So an object is an instance of a class. Means you are copying or cloning of that class. A single class can create n number of unique objects. So as I said, class is a logical entity, and an object is an instance of a class, or you can say the actual the things, like it's the real things. The object is the present something. It's a real thing, you can say. So it's an instance of a class. So it has, so every object will have the same type of some attribute which will have combination all together. Will you can say it's an instance of a class. So since the object is the behavior of the object, it comes from the the class the template. So that's why it's saying it's a clone or copy of the class, because it's nothing. Object is just nothing. It's a real thing, and a class is a logical thing. So object of a class will have a states and behavior. As an example, a dog has a state color, name, breed, as well as some behaviors like wagging, some sounds, barking and eating. So those are all different behavior of a dog. Okay, so you can say dog is a class. If you think it's a dog is a class, and that time its color, name, some different sounds, those are the behavior of a dog. So those are the different attribute that makes a dog a complete complete object of an animal class, you can say. So constructor gets called by default when we create an object of that class. So when you create, we'll see this how to create class, how to create object. So when you create an object of a class, the constructor, if you have a constructor method, it will automatically, by default, it will get called the constructor method. And again, what is method? Method is similar like a function. If you have a function outside of a class, it is called function. Like function, it does a specific job. And if you have a similar idea, the function, if you use inside a class, it's called a method. But it's a same thing. It's a method or constructor, both it's method and a function, both are same thing. Both are do some specific job. So Now the relationship between class and object, the class is a blueprint as we know, while objects are actual object. It's exist in real world. So example, animal is a class and dog is an object of that class. So animal is a class. We know it's animal is a like some logical steps, like some, it's not, animal is something is that you can't see it, right? But it's a dog, you can see it. So dog exists, so which is object, but animal doesn't exist. It is a hypothetical, it is a logical things. That's animal is give you a picture, like the all the animals will have some common behavior, will have some behavior, some color, some sound, some eating habit. Those are different attribute of animal class that help you to build a particular object. Okay, now here is an example again. We can consider student class. If we see this student is a class, then some attribute of this class, like you can say some properties of that class is like name, ID, grade, and a combination of these properties or attribute name, ID, grade, you can make a object. So example, you can say object 1, which is a or student 1, the name is like John and the ID is 001 and the grade A. Similarly, object 2, Jackson 002B. Okay, so you can create n number of objects in a single class. Okay, so here a student class is a template or logical entity, we know that, and we can create as many students with all the attribute, all different 3 attributes as an individual object. Okay, so that's the relationship between a class and object. So let's go back to our VS Code where we can do some real example. So in our VS Code, here is our VS Code. We have a one JS file or a spec file, which is class object demo.js. Okay, so here we're going to see, so first, how we're gonna create a class. Very simple. We're going to use a keyword. It's called class. You can see right away it comes up, class, and then you give a class name, say students. Okay, that's your class name, and then you have a parenthesis bracket. So this is your body of your class. Okay, this is the body of your class. So inside this, all the properties that belongs to this class will have to be inside between this parentheses, curly braces. Okay, so now this is a class. So this is very simple how to create a class. That's class already created. Now we are going to create some properties of the class, like some variables, some methods. So let's create a method. Would say set student details. Set student details is I'm going to create a method where I'm going to initialize some of the students details. So I would say ID equals to, I declare a variable ID equals to say 001, and then I would say name equals to, was seen John, right? And then name equals to, why say name is a deprecated variable. Okay, so let's put it as name. Okay, and then I would say grade equals to say A, or let's put A. So this is student details. So one is student details. Okay, so now if I'm going to, so all these are local variable that belongs to this method set student student details. So this local variable, this is the local variable for this, belongs to this method. So you can't get access those variable outside of this method. Outside of methods, these variables will be will not able to access. So we can make this local variable as a global variable too, using a in a JavaScript. You can use it's that's called keyword. It's called this is a keyword. So if you use this keyword, okay, so this refer to class level. So it means this variable, this variable after this, whatever the variable, this variable now it will belongs to the class level. It means it will be, if it's underneath your class level, it's this variable will treat as a global variable. So it is now local as well as global variable. So you can do this too, this, and then you can do this also. So using this keyword, I made all this local variable to a global variable, because when you use this, it's referred to the class level. Okay, so which is a global level, right? So now if I want to access those values, those data from this method, how can I get access? So easily I can say, get details. I will create another method. Okay, get details method, and then inside the method I will just if you want, I can just print it. I can get the all those things. Since now these variables are, so ID have a value this, S name has a value this, and grade have a value this. So those are variable also in a global level. So indirectly you can say those variables is like this. It's like over here, if you just declare without a this, something like this, it's the same thing. It is the same thing. So by doing this, you don't have to do this. So this is already given. Okay, so now it's a global level. So easily I can call any global parameter, any global properties inside your method even. So I create another method, is called get details, and here I can just if I want to print it, say console.log, and then I can print this. So how can I print this? So again I can call this dot id, then I can make a comma, this dot s name, student name, and then this comma this dot grade. Okay, so this way you can easily call your global variable, and also it's already assigned, so it should print now. Okay, let's put it up, and then let's see this, if it's a print that value. Okay, let me now, if we want to print, okay, if we want to, we know this console.log will print, it will get the value for ID, will get from 001, for S name will get John. So this statement will print. But if you want to print it, where this statement it belongs to this method, get details method. So we have to execute this method. We have to call this method. To execute this method, we have to call this method. So and this is a method, this is a method, both are method, and both methods are part of your class, so which is called properties. So if you want to access any properties of your class, you have to create an object of that class. So that's the very standard natural behavior of a class, whether it's a Java, you use a JavaScript or Java, you to access any properties of a class, you have to create an object of that class. So to create an object of a class, what you can do, we have to use a keyword which is called new, and then what's your class name. So you call the class name. By the way, let's change the class name to S. Usually class name it's better to start with the uppercase. Okay, new students, students. Okay, let's save it. New student, and then okay, so after you use the new keyword and then call you use the same name of your class, so your object name would be the same like your class name, equals to, you put in a variable. So you put in a variable, any variable, right? Say you say S, and then you put in a your return type is bar. Okay, so after that, so okay, you have to create this object outside of this class ending variable, right? So here, so create it here. Okay, that should be good. So this is called object of your class, the new keyword and then your class name, and you put in a variable. Okay, it is called also object reference. This S is the object reference, which is pointing to your class. The class name is students. So it means, and the class, since a object, as we said, object is the clone of your class, so this object have the whole everything knowledge. You have all the properties you have on this class students. So it means, since S is pointing to object, it means S has the knowledge of all the properties you have in this class. Right now there is two methods you have. So this S is pointing at this object. So object has the knowledge all the properties, so it means S has the knowledge of all the properties you have in this class. So to access any properties or any methods from this class, you have to use this object reference. So how to use this? So you just put the S, then you put a dot. Now you can see the properties of this class, students class. It should show here. You can say get details. You see the method it shows, and also it will show another method, set student details. So if I want to call get details, so let's call the get details method. Okay, and then okay, now that should be, make sure you save it. Okay, so let's run it. So we know how to run it. To run it, so when you run it, we saw this just we got some octal literal are not allowed in a strict mode, so error, syntax error. So it means we can't use this with a 0 first. So make sure you save it, then run it again. So there's two different way we can run here. So here we saw in our previous lecture that you can run a specific file from here, from your terminal, right? So using a node, then where is your file is located, you pass that your class name, class, and then object. Make sure that you write exactly the same name as it is your class, otherwise it will not find your file. Okay, so you can see the output over here, 1 John A, right? So using object reference, I call first this get details method, so it gets the information over here. Then I call that get set student methods, and then I call the get details method. So it's from the get details method, it console, and it gets all the information from here, right? And that's why it's a 1 John and A, it's printing over here, right? So you can use this way. So every time we use node dot the class name, or the JS file name, instead of, you can use some extension. It's called code runner. So if you click up there, you can type code, then you will find a code runner. So you click this one and then install it. It's already I have installed, that's why it doesn't show the install. So you can install it. So then you will get some where is that? Then you will get some right click over here. So you can use a right click, and you can say run code, right? So run code, and then it will show when you use the run code, right, the code runner, that time it will show the output in underneath the output part. You can see there's the output. So here is you see this, your output is 1 John A. Okay, so this is the way you can create methods, and then you create an object, and then use the object reference, call your method. Now these variables are very static variables. So you fix that, so the value, like 1 you assign to this ID, John you assign to. So what if you don't want to fix it? You just keep it, you just don't want to fix it. You pass the runtime value to this method. So anytime that time you can pass different value instead of fixed value. So for doing that, you can pass some parameter in your method, so that your parameter it's like something, it's like a variable. You will pass some variable inside with your method over here. So instead of this fix the value, assign any fixed value, so you just put some, you can put not this, you can have the same ID, and then maybe you can say as name, and then you can say instead of exact value grade, so you can put this one. So it means I'm passing over here now some same ID, same variable. So this variable is now assigned to this ID. So this ID and this ID is not the same. You can have some different name, different variables. So what about the variable you are going to pass over here is called parameter. So say ID comma then s name then comma then grade. So those are the parameters. So this parameter, I'm passing over, it's over here. So what about the parameter you are going to pass? You have to put exactly this. So this is the parameter, or you can say your local variable over here, and this is your global variable. Okay, so now over here I'm going to, when I call this method, now when I call this set student details, that time you have this method, it knows that you have already some parameter, so it means some variable. So now if you have a parameter in your method, you have to pass some actual value, or it's called argument, right? So we can paste say 100, so or say 10, and then your name, now we can say Jackson, and then we can say grade also A. Okay, now 10 will be assigned to this ID, Jackson will assign to this S name, and A will be assigned to grade. So eventually this ID will be replaced by 10, Jackson by replaced by S name, and A will replaced by grade, and it means your all this global variable will be assigned by this number, right? This instead of this parameter, this actual value. Okay, so let's save it and then run it, see this if it works. Now we can see this is the second one. Okay, did you update, save it? Yes, so this is now 10 Jackson A, see it? Okay, so 10 Jackson A is now, it's showing over here. If we just clear it, clear output, run it again, it should show, now it's showing the updated result. So 10 Jackson A. Okay, this is the way you can pass some parameter, and then when you call the method, you pass the actual argument. Okay, so now let's do something else. Here we have seen we create this set student details method to initialize this variable like ID, S name, grade, to initialize this variable by some actual value. We pass the argument, and then we pass the parameter, and then we pass the argument, that which is initialized. So to just for initialization, instead of doing this, we can use another concept. It's called constructor. So constructor in a class, constructor is a special method which is written in a class, and it's, so the purpose of the constructor is nothing, it just help you to initialize some of your variables, some of your global variable. So now this ID, it's a global variable, right? So we made this ID, S name, grade by using keyword this. So it's a global variable, and we pass the parameter to assign them. So it means by this method we are doing just nothing except is initializing actual value to this method, right, through this method. So same thing we can do over here, creating a constructor, and we'll see that the difference that the benefit of using constructor. So let's see, first is create the constructor. So create the constructor, you have to use the keyword is called constructor. You can say it automatically comes. So constructor, it's nothing, just use the keyword, and then you can have since it's a method, constructor also method, so it can take also some parameter. So I just pass the same thing. It can take them parameter. It's not necessary that you have to pass the parameter, but since it's a method, it's behave like a method. So it is the behavior like it can take some parameter, and usually people pass the parameter so that we can assign or initialize the global variable. So same thing, instead of doing this way, I create a constructor, pass the some parameter over here, and now in here, what is really happened. If you noticed at the very beginning, we said constructor is a special method, and it's used to initialize your global variable, some variables, and also when you create an object of your class, constructor gets by default called. So as soon as we create the object over here, new students, automatically it will check this object. The first things it will check if there is a constructor over here or not. If there is a constructor, it will get called by default. So like to call other method from this class, students class, we have to use the object reference, then call this method. But for the constructor, you don't need to do this. It's as soon as you create the object over here, this automatically call this constructor. So here, since this object is already called the constructor, it means it has some parameter, so we have to pass some actual value or argument instead of this parameter to replace the parameter. Say we're passing 101, and then we're passing, say this time is John, and then we're passing the grade is like B. Okay, so that's the way. The benefit is that you see this, when you create a constructor, you don't need to use object reference. Since constructor gets called by default, automatically it's called, so all you have to just pass the actual the argument instead of this parameter. So this is the benefit using constructor. So constructor method gets called by default, right? So save it, make sure you save it, and then let's clear this. Then if we run it again, here we go. Now you can see it's calling, giving you 101 John B, and it's coming over here. So this argument is replacing in this constructor, so it's getting the initialize this ID, this s name, everything, and it's coming over here, and after that it's calling this get display method, and they are getting the result from here, right? So that's the way you can use constructor. Okay, this is the benefits of using constructor method. So I hope it's very clear. Again, constructor is just it's a special method. It's only used for initializing your variable, but the method, it is the different purpose. So you create a method to do some specific job. It can do some go through some very complex logic. It can return to the method statement. You can do some any logical, any complex logical things you need to do. Everything you can do through the method. Okay, and also we have seen, or we have talked earlier, that you can have, in this class we have just only one object, right? So you can have an n number of objects inside a class. So you can, that's there is no problem. So it's similar example, like let's create some other number methods. Say I created 2 more objects, so I give a name, say s1 for this object variable, and then this is a s2, and then here I pass a different number, 101, 102, 103, and then here I say John. That's fine. The first one is John, so let's see Jackson, and then and then here's a grade B, or you can say grade A, and then here you can say John Haig, John Haig, and then you can see grade C. Okay, so we create it in a multiple object. So students, so student is your class and it has a multiple object, and like object is like S1, S1, S2. So the 3 object underneath the student class, right? So how you gonna now call this? You have to call the respective method so that it works all together, right? So here for here, when you pass the value up here, but to display, we have to call this method for the object S, right? So similarly for other objects, you have to call the relative method according to. So you have to use the object reference S1 so that it's called this method for this object S1, and similarly you call this S2, use the object reference S2, right? Now save it, let's clear it, clear the output, and then you can run it again. Here we go. The first one is this one, 101 John B, second one Jackson A, 102, and third one is 103 John Haig 3 C. Okay, so that's the way you can create n number of objects in a class. Okay, so once again, class is nothing, is a blueprint and template where it has some methods, some properties like methods, variables, and also you can have a constructor. And then when you create an object, to create an object of a class, you have to use new keyword and the same name of your class, and puts in a variable which is object reference, and then use the object reference, call any properties of your class, any properties, any variables, any methods, anything. Okay, and you can have a n number of object in a class. Okay, so pretty much that's all about the the class and object, the relationship between the class and object, and also the constructor. Hope you enjoy the tutorial. If you like it, please share with others, and stay tuned. See you in next tutorial. Bye bye.